Only you have the power to forgive.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 medical conspiracies that turned out to be real.
They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America.
For this list, we'll be looking at famous conspiracies involving medical science that have a dash of realism about them. Which conspiracy theories are the most unbelievable for you? Let us know below. Number 10. Fake vaccine drive. In 2011, news leaked that the CIA had planned to create fake vaccination drives with the aid of Dr. Shaquille Afridi. The spy group believed that the infamous Osama bin Laden was hiding in a compound in the Pakistani city of Abbottabad. So they sent Afridi and medics to the area to offer free vaccinations for hepatitis B.
He passed key intelligence to the United States, and for that, Pakistan charged him with spying.
Starting in a poorer part of town, the health workers only administered one of the 3 required doses before moving on to bin Laden's neighborhood. Their real aim was to extract DNA from patients to see if bin Laden or his family were in the area.
I don't know anybody who has been forced to do a DNA test after Laden's death. I only know that people who had lived inside and nearby the building where they found bin Laden were vaccinated for their DNA collection before Laden's death.
However, this concept allegedly failed. Regardless, this caused massive issues in the area since locals became untrusting of legitimate vaccine programs, potentially putting thousands of lives at stake.
No DNA was obtained, reportedly, but the Pakistani doctor who ran that program has now been arrested.
Number 9. Bad booze. Looking back, the notion of prohibition was a ridiculous idea. After all, if people want to do something, they'll find a way to get it.
There's bootleg liquor on every American lip, shiny flask on every hip.
However, no one expected the government to go this far. In 1926, people began noticing that alcohol made by bootleggers was regularly causing serious illness and even ending lives. As it turned out, authorities were behind it. They had ordered that industrial alcohol, which bootleggers stole and used, would be tainted with toxins such as methanol.
So what the government then looked at was, can we do something to this alcohol that makes it much riskier to drink, and use that essentially as a chemical enforcement of prohibition.
The plan was to instill fear in potential drinkers that they would become ill. But it of course didn't work. By the end of Prohibition, it was estimated that at least 10,000 people perished to this careless concept.
It was clear that Prohibition had not brought the social improvements it had promised. Instead, it contributed to political corruption and organized crime.
Number 8. Operation Paperclip.
How do you think we got to the moon? It was all rocketeers, all biologists. I mean, we helped you.
While the Soviet Union had Operation Osseovakum, the U.S. had Operation Paperclip, previously known as Operation Overcast. After the defeat of Germany in World War II, the U.S. brought in around 1,600 scientists to use their knowledge.
The scientists that America wanted to bring, they put a paperclip on their folder, and that marks them. From then on out, it was called Operation Paperclip.
However, many of them were members and leaders of the fascist regime. When murmurs about this secret project were reported in 1946, people were uncomfortable.
There was, on the one hand, the truth about the program kept secret, and on the other hand, the idea that we'll tell the public that these are the good Germans.
One recruit that helped the U.S. with medical science was Walter Schreiber, a doctor and a general in the German army who worked on preemptive measures against biological weapons during the war. He was also accused of conducting horrific human experiments, which he denied. Schreiber left Paperclip in 1952 and relocated to Argentina. Number 7. Sugaring the truth.
When they took the fat out, they had to do something because when you take the fat out, the food tastes like cardboard. They added salt and they added sugar. And they added sugar in such a way as to basically make it irresistible.
People wouldn't lie about health issues to make money, would they? Nowadays, the New England Journal of Medicine requires proof that researchers don't have conflicts of interest in their papers. Back in 1967, those checks weren't present, and the sugar industry took advantage.
The Journal of the American Medical Association reveals that scientists were paid in the 1960s to play down the link between sugar and heart disease and instead make saturated fat the culprit.
An article by Harvard nutrition employees Dr. Frederick Stair and Mark Hegsted aimed to blame cholesterol and fat in a diet for the cause of heart disease, not the sweet stuff.
Codenamed Project 226, the industry was funneling thousands of dollars to a pair of influential Harvard nutritionists, led by Dr. Mark Hegstead. One secret memo spells out the terms of the payoff.
In 2016, it was discovered by Dr. Kristen Kearns that the duo was funded by the Sugar Research Foundation at the cost of $6,500 at the time, around $49,000 today, and thus turning the sucrose companies into billion-dollar industries. Number 6. The heart attack weapon. A silent weapon that can induce a heart attack doesn't sound like real life, instead confined to the pages of a spy novel or a blockbuster film. Except it exists, and that's terrifying. Old school CIA was involved in some of the most ambitious and bonkers plots possible. During the Church Committee in 1975, where the agency was being examined for abuse of power, the heart attack weapon was showcased to the room.
Does this pistol fire the dart?
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman. The round thing at the top is obviously the sight. The rest of it is what is practically a normal .45, although it's special.
It was devised to fire a frozen dart formed of a shellfish toxin noiselessly that could induce a cardiac arrest in the target before melting away and removing all evidence beyond a small skin prick. The weapon then vanished from public viewing and hasn't been seen since.
And a special one was developed which potentially would be able to enter the target without perception.
Number 5. Smoking and cancer. Today we know that smoking isn't great for us and can cause various diseases and cancers. But we could have found this out decades earlier if the tobacco industry didn't conspire to hide the truth.
He's been testing the link between nicotine and lung cancer for 30 years and hasn't found any conclusive results. The man's a genius. He could disprove gravity.
In 1950, studies began showing the link between smoking and ill health. Straight away, the tobacco firms went into damage control. The Tobacco Institute released a statement that criticized the papers highlighting the issue and promoted the practice of smoking. In 2011, researchers from UCLA discovered that the industry had known about cancer-causing particles in tobacco since 1959. Yet they hid that from the public.
All cigarettes cause cancer, lung disease, heart attacks, and premature death.
Known as polonium-210, the radioactive material could have been removed by producers, but they chose not to and instead lied about it. Yikes.
Consumers cough up for higher prices because they crave the drug in tobacco, nicotine. And without nicotine addiction, there would simply be no tobacco industry. And the industry knows this.
Number 4. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. In 1932, U.S. Medical Services started a study for then-incurable syphilis in Tuskegee, Alabama. Sounds reasonable. Instead, it became one of the biggest misuses of ethics in the States.
But their recruitment plan centered on a lie.
399 black men with the disease and a control group of 201 were put in the program that lasted until 1972. Participants were told that they would get treatment for their bad blood, yet received placebos instead, even though penicillin had existed since 1947.
That is bad blood. That's what we're checking to see if y'all got so we can get rid of it.
The experimenters wanted to document what happens to people with untreated syphilis. Unsurprisingly, terrible things occur, such as mental illness and passing away. In the 60s, researcher Peter Buxton tried to stop this disturbing study, but the authorities refused. So he went to the press, forcing the grim experiments to finish.
On behalf of the American people, what the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry.
Number 3. Bayer Medicine spreads AIDS.
They wanted to keep it secret. They didn't want to publicize something which would be damaging for the company.
In the early 1980s, Cutter Biological, a subsidiary of Bayer, was making medicine for hemophiliacs for blood clotting.
The medicine's called Factor 8. It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease.
Hold on, Mike. However, epidemiologists soon realized that various blood products had been contaminated and were spreading HIV. Even when a safe, heat-treated alternative became available, Cutter continued to manufacture the old product for a while. After they switched, they still had a lot of the old product sitting in their inventory. So they sold it in Asia and Latin America, spreading the disease through an unsuspecting populace.
This company knew absolutely that they had a problem with the product. They knew that it was infected with AIDS. They dumped it because they wanted to turn this disaster into a profit.
The company has since paid hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits.
The documents show that there was no question that this company absolutely understood the risk, that they knew that it was contaminated. It wasn't a possibility. They knew it was contaminated.
Number 2, Project Sunshine. If there was a category for the biggest misnomer in history, Project Sunshine would be in the running for the imaginary prize. In 1955, the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission devised this program to monitor the effects of nuclear fallout from atomic testing on the human body.
But the Department of Defense was very interested in the effects of total body irradiation. Because if there's a nuclear war and people get irradiated, are they going to be able to function?
The problem was they needed samples. They had scientists in Europe and Australia send them the bodies and body parts of deceased people, most of them very young, without the permission of the next of kin. Altogether, around 1,500 subjects were forcefully added to the project.
It was a really, really ugly experiment.
Some parents weren't even able to dress their passed-away children for funerals to hide the terrible deed. In 1995, the morbid study was publicly discovered.
The United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1, Project MKUltra. If you weren't already wary of the CIA, you will be in a moment. In 1953, the agency created Project MKUltra to find a way to control human behavior with drugs and psychological torment. Essentially, they wanted to brainwash people.
The CIA spent 25 years and $25 million on secret mind control research. Brainwashing could be a powerful ideological weapon, and the U.S. had to have it. And when the agency didn't undertake its own studies, it funded someone else's.
The CIA conducted experiments in the U.S. and Canada, often in hospitals and prisons. One infamous example had the CIA using LSD to see what that did to participants' willpower.
The experiments are conducted on military volunteers, but the young servicemen have no idea what they are letting themselves in for.
Some folks willingly signed up for the experiments, but many did not. Regardless, there were cases of subjects perishing or experiencing lifelong mental trauma from the study. Project MKUltra ended in 1973. After being leaked to the press, the experiment became publicly disclosed during the Church Committee in '75.
Everyone from unwitting housewives to soldiers to even criminals like gangster Whitey Bulger is tested.
You know, what the CIA really dreamed of was sort of like a drug you could give to someone, get them to commit all sorts of unspeakable acts, and they wake up the next day and they don't remember what they've done.